What's up? What's up? Welcome again to the MPACT podcast. It's your boy Coach A, helping you have an impact in your life. So if you want to have an impact in your job, your career, whatever it is you want to accomplish here on earth, success, you want to have an impact. So keep it locked right here. Today we talked about harmony. That's right. Every person got to have a plan to bring their lives back in harmony every time. And so it's important because that's where a lot of our stress, a lot of our frustration, a lot of our angers, all those negative emotions come from us not bringing our lives back in harmony, not having a plan for harmony. And what happens is we begin to carry that weight or those burdens or those issues. We began to carry it with us from relationship to relationship. And so that's what this is. That's what this podcast is about today, is to motivate people or to teach people how to have a plan in place to bring their lives back to harmony whenever you deal with any type of situation, whenever you deal with any type of grief or, circumstances that you can't control, or sometimes you get into an argument. It's related to yesterday. I was up in my attic, right? I had to clean out, and I spoke a little bit about that on the last podcast. I was in my attic having to clean out the pipes for the dryer. And so what happened was there was a buildup of all the lint, all the lint and particles and dirt from years and years and years of, just whoever was here first, whoever was using their dryer first. It was just a caked in buildup. And what happens is when we came and we got a new dryer and we connected it, ours didn't work correctly. And so that's what the revelation I got from that was that, that's just how we are, is that, if we don't have a plan to clean our lives or to clear our emotions, bring us back to harmony, we'll continue to carry those things every single day with us to different relationships. We'll just automatically carry those things. And so that's why it's important that we have a plan in place to bring our lives back to harmony. And I'll tell you that one of the biggest revelations I got out of this was from listening to a Bible message or a scripture. One time I was reading about the disciples and Jesus said the disciples had hardened hearts. And so instantly that whole situation reminded me, well, just to explain it like this, of course, Jesus had just fed the multitude with the fish and some loaves. And then he sent the disciples to go across the water. And so at that time, he told them that he would meet them over there. He said, you guys go ahead and go over there. And he said, I'll meet you over there. And so later on that night, I believe it was a storm or something going on. And he started walking on the water, and he came up to the disciples, and they got scared. And so when he got on the boat, he made all the winds and stuff cease. And the scripture said that the disciples was sore and amazed. They was amazed at what he done. And Jesus instantly, said to them that they had a hardened heart because they didn't remember or what he had just did at the on the land when he had fed the multitude. And it got me to thinking what the meaning, because most of the time we look at hardened heart as, somebody who's against God or somebody who's doing evil and completely, doing some wrong things against the church. We view that as having a hardened heart. And so it got me to thinking that the disciples wasn't like that. They was with Jesus. They was, they loved him and they worked with him. So it got me to thinking hardened heart has to have a different meaning. And so as I began to research not only in the Bible but in the world, it brought me to this elaborate understanding about the mind and about how we operate. And so once you realize how your mind and how you operate, you can bring your life back to harmony in any situation. And so just I want you to think for a minute that there is a godly source that is working in the world right now. And what happens is this source works on automatic. Like if you take a seed and you put it into a ground and you water that seed, that source in the universe is going to take that seed and it's going to create something. It's going to grow into something. And so the same way we are created the same way, but our seeds is our thoughts, right? Our thoughts and our actions. If you take a thought and it's placed in your head and you leave it there long enough, that thought is going to turn into some type of action. That's just is automatic. That's just how we're created. And so if you're not cautious of your thoughts and emotions that's in your head, they're constantly trying to become something. And so what happened in that particular situation is being that thoughts turn into something, it's automatic. They turn in, and what happens is they crystallize or turn into habits. And now these habits is what make us as individuals. Our character makes up our character and our actions. So if you're not cautious of these things, then they can get away from with you. But it's not positive or negative. That's the thing. That force, that godly force that's turning our thoughts into action, doesn't recognize positive or negative thoughts. It doesn't recognize these things. It doesn't even recognize positive or negative actions. Just like that seed that's in the ground, it doesn't recognize, what type of seed it is. It's just whenever you water that seed, something sprouts out. And so the earth doesn't care what kind of seed it is. There's just principles. If you put water on it and it has the proper soil, it's going to turn into something. So your thoughts happen the same way if you're not cautious of them. And that's coincidentally why the scripture tells us to, take captive every thought. But anyhow, so you take these thoughts that are trying to become actions, just like seeds. They're trying to become actions. And so what happens is it doesn't recognize the positive or negative thought, or it doesn't recognize positive, negative actions. And so it just merges it into a habit. That's what happens. If you think about stuff long enough, it begins to merge into a habit, into actions. And so once it become a habit, or an act, which is displayed in your actions, then it becomes permanent. And that's how you have people that have certain attitudes and different things like that. And so our goal is to make sure that we take control of these thoughts so that they never become habits. They never become thoughts that turn into habits. And that's why it's very important, because, in relationships, a lot of times, just like those pipes, just like those dryer pipes, they get clogged up with previous, actions, previous situations, previous relationships. And so when we try to move on to the next relationship, or we try to move on to the next event, our pipes is not cleaned out. And so being that they're not clean, we're still carrying that baggage. How can we communicate effectively, or how can we have an effective, healthy relationship with the next individual or the next situation if we're still dealing with things from the past? And so that's the importance of making sure that you have a plan to bring all your emotions back to harmony. So what is harmony? Harmony is the same thing as having peace in your life. But what really is it? We know it is identified in, like laughter and joy and stuff like that. But what is it? So just to help you understand what exact harmony is when, you make sure that your conscious mind and your subconscious mind and your spirit are all in agreement, right? Your subconscious mind, which is also known as your heart, the inside person, your conscious mind, which is the one that reacts to everything now, and then your spirit, which is the conscious. You can also think about it as your intuition, your spirit, your intuition. When all those things line up with what you want, then you're in harmony. And so that's that happy state that everybody's in, where nothing's, they feel good and nothing's going bad. And so if any one of these things are disrupted, then you become out of you're not no longer in harmony. So for instance, you can be sitting, and that's why you can have two people sitting down enjoying a nice view and a nice mountaintop or sunset, but one person is focused on, all three, their intuition, their conscious thought, and their subconscious, all can focus on the beautiful scene, and they're at peace and they're enjoying it. But the other person might be thinking about something different. And so that's how you can have two people in the same situation but not be at peace, because the other person is, maybe their conscious mind is thinking about something that happened in the past. But even though they're seeing the same beautiful scenery and they know they should be enjoying it, but they can't, or maybe their conscious mind, their subconscious is thinking about something, or is telling them this something's going to go wrong. And so that's how you get yourself out of harmony. And that's how you get that lump, you feel that lump in your chest or in your throat, like something's going to go wrong or something's bad, from anger and stuff like that. And so that's why it's important that you have a plan. You have to purposely plan out a way that you're going to make sure you bring that peace back into your life, or bring that harmony back into your life. Because if you don't, then again, it's going to be like those clogged pipes inside that dryer vent. It's going to continue to clog up more and more and more. And then eventually something's going to go wrong. Either you're going to snap and do something that you wish you hadn't done, or you're going to malfunction. You can get a disease, you can stress from stress and stuff like that. So that's why it's important that we all have a plan to bring ourselves back in harmony. Right. So it's just important. So getting back to the disciples and how that worked, talking about our mind. And these are the things that really help in your relationship. Anytime you anytime you're dealing with people, you definitely have to have a plan to bring yourself back in harmony, because you can continue those emotions further and further along, and you never rectify that situation. That's how people hold grudges. And I'll give you a prime example of how this particular principle, I've learned that this particular principle is what breaks every relationship up. Every relationship is broken up by this particular principle, by couples not having a plan to bring their relationship back in harmony. And coincidentally, it just brings a scripture to my mind from the Bible where it says, "Don't let the sun set on your anger." And so think about that. When the sun set, it represents a time of rejuvenating, a time of when the seeds are planted in the ground, they're gathering the nutrients and they're transforming into whatever it is, and everything is being merged and turned into that habit. And so if you continue to have that thought inside your head, it can be merged inside there and it'll become a habit. And so I give you a quick example of how it works in a relationship. Say you and your significant other, y'all have an argument, and so they say something that you don't like. And so instantly, when someone says something you don't like, you begin to have certain thoughts, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're mad at this person or you're upset at this person. And so those are the negative thoughts. Instantly, they trying to take root inside your head. Instantly. That's just how we're created. That's how the universe and the world is, that all these thoughts are trying to take root and turn into some type of action. And so what happens is, if you allow those thoughts to maintain in your head, then pretty soon they become a habit. They become what the Bible calls as hardened. They crystallize or harden in your head. So now you have the same two people where at one point, yeah, you couldn't live without them. You were just happy every time you saw them. Now you're in a mental stage where you can just walk past them and not speak to them or not say anything, because you've allowed those thoughts to take over and begin and harden inside your head. And so that's the beginning of the split, because if you have two people that has those same emotions and they begin to harden and strengthen over time, those thought habits begin to strengthen more and more and more. That's how people begin to grow apart and apart and apart. And pretty soon you don't care. You don't care if you're there or not. You don't care if you're in a relationship or not. All because you didn't take that first thought after that first argument or misunderstanding. You didn't have a plan to bring your lives back to harmony, to bring your relationship back to harmony, to bring everything back where there's peace in your heart, peace in your thoughts, peace in your heart, and peace in your intuition or your spirit, so to speak. And so that's why it's important. And that's like the one of the major reasons that people wake up and they don't even understand why they, either they say they fell out of love with this person or they don't care about this person. That's the basic reason of why those things happen, is because we don't know how, or we don't even recognize, number one, how our mind works, how we get to that point, and number two, the importance of bringing all relationships back to harmony, because it works the same way with a job. It works the same way with our friends. If we continue to think negative thoughts, it's going to crystallize in our head, and all these thoughts are trying to turn into actions. So we have to make sure that we, keep these things in line. So that's one of the ways that you can maintain harmony, is by having a actual plan of bringing these things back into alignment, right? We're talking about your conscious mind, and a lot of time it's done through prayer. Some people can do it through prayer. Some people do it through meditation, which is huge. Meditation is actually a lot stronger than prayer at times, because it gives you a full focus, but obviously when it comes to what you're praying about or what you're meditating on, you have to be cautious of that, because you can meditate on negative things and have the same effect as well. Again, remember that these habits, right, this force, it doesn't really recognize positive or negative. And so in the same way that it can create, problems, it also can create, success. If you develop the right habits, then you coast to success. That's why it's very important. That's why it's very important you recognize how you're thinking, what your actions are, all these things, because you can develop a habit that'll help you in life. If you develop the habit of always being persistent, you develop a habit of always being consistent or always being honest, or these are habits that help take you to success. But on the other hand, if you develop a habit of lying or of not being trusted, just saying stuff and not following through with what your word is, you develop a habit of doing that. And these are the habits that take you down, and eventually, it'll cause some issues for you. You might lose a job or lose some friends, or you'll never be as successful as you can. So that's why is important. So again, keeping your heart, which is your subconscious mind, your mind, which are your current thoughts, and your intuition is your spirit, keeping those on the same page. So another thing you can do is know when to ignore your reasoning and your logic. Very important. A lot of us live right off our reasoning and logic. Whenever we see something or we hear something, we just automatically apply it to our emotions and we just run with it. That's very dangerous, because just because you see something doesn't always make it the truth. It might be factual because you see it, but it's not the truth. For instance, and it's all perspective. For instance, somebody can say something and you can misinterpret what they say. And so if you misinterpret what people say, you can surround your emotions around that, and that'll cause problems. So if you want to, again, we talking about maintaining harmony in your life and peace in your life. So what you want to do is you want to ignore your reasoning and your logic. That means you forcing your mind back to the peaceful state that you want it to be in. You forcing love. Say your goal is to always be loving and to always be positive, but a negative situation happened. And so logically, you want to respond to the negative situation, because that's just how we're created. negative and positive attract negative and positive actions and thoughts. And so what happens is, but inside you want to be a positive person. So what you would do is ignore the logic and reasoning, ignore the fact that you want to respond negatively, and then you just override that and respond in love or respond in peace. And that's a big way of how to maintain your peace in your life, by doing those things. It takes a lot of practice. All these things that I'm mentioning takes practice. you know it doesn't come easy for the average person, because they've learned to react different way, and they've built these habits to respond a certain way based on their experiences and what they've been through. And so in order to try to change these things, it takes practice and it takes focus. You literally probably have to talk to yourself, and just convince your inner self that no matter what happens, you're going to maintain a positive attitude. You're going to maintain in positive actions. Very important. So we talked about ignoring your logic and your reasons. And there's certain times that, obviously, if there's an accident up there, then you can see that could be harmful for you or harmful. So you don't want to ignore your logic and reason, be like, oh, I'm gonna be positive and walk through this accident or walk through the fire. No, it doesn't work like that. But you have to know in certain situations that you want harmony to take place. All our behavior, and the reason being is because all our behavior is reactionary anyways. There's most people believe that they're reacting to or the environment you know is producing situations for them, but in actuality we're just reacting to what's going on in our environment. And what happens is, knowing that, we're reacting to what's going on in our environment, that's where our habits develop. Let's say, you got into a fight with, a group of people or a certain type of person. And so you can quickly develop a certain type of distrust or a certain type of attitude towards a group of people because of that, because of that situation that you had. And that's where you will want to ignore your personal logic and reasoning and be like, no, everybody is not like that. That individual was just for that situation. And so that's why it's important. Shout out to my boy YJ. What's up, Jeremy? I hope you're doing all right, buddy. It's always good to see you. Right. So another point I'm telling you in bringing yourself back to harmony is becoming your own. I wrote this one down, is becoming your own dominating influence over your mental, physical, and spiritual environment. So the way we work, the way influence work, is that there's a dominating influence. And so the dominating influence spills out to everybody. Whenever you have two people, you have a group of people come together, everybody's minds is like a garden and everybody's mixing up together. And what happens is, whoever has the dominant personality becomes the greater influence. So that person with the dominant personality will influence other people to sometimes talk like them, or make the same type of jokes like them, or to act like them. So, and that's coincidentally one of the reasons why it's very important to select who you hang out with, because if you have plans to reach success at a certain level, to accomplish certain things, the people you hang out with can very well pull you down. They can you'll develop bad habits. So anyhow, becoming a dominant influence, meaning you have to make sure that you're the dominant influence within your life. Your plans, your goals is the dominant influence within your life, so that nobody influences you and gets you off of your path. And so if you do that, make sure that you're the dominating influence and you're the dominating factor within your life, then you have the power to always bring yourself back to a harmonized state, or peace, back to peace. And so that's why it's important, because other people will come in there and accidentally, they don't try to do it on purpose, but they can, we already hear they trying to steal your joy. Well, they can't actually steal your joy, but they can influence you to lose it, where you feel like you're not joyful, or you feel like you're not having a good time, or whatever the situation is. But understanding that these feelings are not privy to the actions that's going on, is based on you and your perception and how you feel. You can have joy and peace and laughter in any situation. And so ideally, well, sometimes we've been taught that only happy situations we're supposed to be happy in, and we've been taught that bad situations we're supposed to feel bad in. But that's really not the truth. It depends on the individual. Some people deal with their situations differently. As long as you're not being disrespectful or, hurting someone else, you don't have to have that negative emotions run your life. You can bring yourself back to joy and peace in any situation. And so again, it's important to harmonize yourself, bring your life back to harmony because of that. And so I think that's pretty much it. I was going to jump on here for a little bit just to give you a little quick nugget about coming into harmony with your life and with yourself is very important. If you're going to have a successful career in anything, you know, often we get things don't go our way. Things don't always go our way. People don't always agree with us, but that doesn't mean we have to carry those things from day to day. In fact, I would encourage you to drop those things immediately after it happens. And sometimes it's a matter of pride. Sometimes you got to swallow your pride because you feel like, you know what, I was right or I was wrong or they was whatever, and you want to hurt them or you want them to feel like you failed or whatever the situation is. But you have to learn how to drop your pride and just bring your life back to peace. And I guarantee you, every situation will change. Every relationship will change because you'll always be at peace. If you're always at peace in harmony with your person, with your, whoever it is you with, then there's not going to be any problems. But the minute you allow your thoughts to steer away from that is the very beginning, is the very beginning of the end. And so you have to make sure that you are aware of that and you keep track of that because it's the beginning of the end. So again, I thank you guys for dropping by. Go ahead and leave a comment. If you can, go over to YouTube, look at the video, look at Impact Podcast, and just join the like or subscribe over there, and hit the bell. You can get notifications anytime I do a video on the podcast. All right, so again, I appreciate you guys swinging by. If you just tuned in, whenever, you can go ahead and rewind it. It's going to be on Facebook. All right, so again, you guys stay peace, and remember, it's all about having the impact. All right, so it's your boy Coach A, and I am definitely out of here. Peace.